listen to me. You listen to me.
Listen to me.
You listen to me closer than you've ever listened.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Brandon Collins,
And I'm Chris Allen.
and we are starting this Friday Night Lights rewatch podcast. Man, it's been hasn't even been a long time coming, but we both have, we were talking, we both kind of wanted to do this, and we just didn't know how to do it. And then we had, I was a guest on your podcast, Chris, the Chris Allen podcast, and then we started talking about this.
Yeah, I don't even remember how we got on it, but we just found out we both have a love for the show, and it just kind of worked out. So I'm excited to like rewatch the show with somebody and talk about it. It's just for me, it's one of the few shows, because my wife is super picky about shows, super picky. But we can get into that later. But it's one of the few shows that I can get my wife to watch over and over again, which is, if you're in a relationship with Mary, you know how big that is.
Yep.
You and your significant other have a show that y'all can just throw on and put on and enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm trying to get my wife to rewatch from the beginning, because I think I said this on your podcast, Chris, that she only started watching season 4 because that's when Michael B. Jordan joins.
Wow.
And I'm like, T, you're not a real Friday Night Lights fan. Like, whenever we come up in conversation with friends or something like that, she'd be like, oh yeah, I love that show. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Because you're not a Friday Night Lights fan. And we're going to review every episode. We're going to recap it, talk about what we like, what we dislike, all that stuff. But I feel like, Chris, you're not a true Friday Night Lights fan if you haven't been through that second season when the writer's strike happened and shit got really weird. And we just were like, there's some storylines we're like, I guess we're just not going to touch on that no more.
Yeah, exactly. You weren't there when Street got hurt.
Episode 1, baby.
Yeah.
Pilot episode. I mean,
yeah, she's not a fan. I'm sorry. I'm no disrespect to the missus, but she's not a fan. This is like, you like Michael B. Jordan. You know what I'm saying? It's like when people go like, yeah, I like the Lakers. It's like, no, you like LeBron, or you like Kobe, or you like so-and-so, or you like, you're not a fan of the squad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to front and be like, when Friday Night Lights came out in 2006, like I was watching every week live on TV. I didn't get into Friday Night Lights till it was on Netflix, which folks, you can watch it now. If you're like, how can I watch Friday Night Lights and catch up with these guys? It's on Netflix. Start at the beginning. But yeah, I didn't start watching it till it was on Netflix, and then I binged it I think in like a week.
Really? So wait, so what year would you say you started watching it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say probably about at least 10 years ago or so.
Okay, to be fair, that's not really too far off from when I found it.
Okay. How'd you come across the show?
Well, I was in the military, and I was what they call TDY, temporary duty, to Augusta, Georgia, in 2011. And I was there for 6 months, and I lived in an apartment complex with one of my coworkers. We didn't work the same shift, but we worked the same job. And we were talking TV shows and stuff like that. He was like, yo, have you ever heard of Friday Night Lights? I go, the movie? He goes, no, the show. And I'm like, nah, I don't really like football shows, because we talked about like the action is bad. I was like, it's never good. And he was like, yo, trust me, watch the show. And to be fair, I can't remember how I watched it. It might have been Netflix. I can't remember.
Okay.
If it was like the app or the channel app or whatever, I can't remember. Actually, it might have been on demand. It was so long ago. Remember, like networks would do it on demand.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's all.
Back when cable actually did its thing.
And now you got to pay for that. But so he goes, watch the show, and I watched the show, and I'm like, oh my God! Like from the first frame, I'm hooked on this show. And then from then on, this was so dope. Whenever our weekends lined up, we would just order food and we would just drink all night and just watch the show and talk about it all weekend. It was like the best 6 months of my life. We did it every weekend.
Yeah, man, I hear you that. I definitely saw Friday Night Lights, the movie, when it first came out. When it came out in 2004, I saw that. I think I just came to New York when it came out. When did it come out? Let's see, October 8th, 2004. So I was in New York at this point in college. Directed by Peter Berg. I believe he was a co-writer on it as well. I love the movie, and maybe as our last episode, we'll review the movie. Because they do take a lot of the same actors, just putting them in different characters, because the movie, I think, takes place in the 80s or something like that. But that movie and this series made me a huge fan of Peter Berg. Some of his movies are absolute trash, but because of his work on this series, I give everything that he does a chance, because the way, I'm the same way, Chris. I'm not into football. I'm not a sports dude. Even though I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the big house. I went to one U of M game my whole life.
Oh, for real?
And that was my senior year in high school.
Damn.
Yeah, man. And so like I wasn't an athletic dude. I had asthma. I was, chubby and overweight most of my life until high school. The sport I did do was row crew, but we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, like I just was never into it. And I can't recall like many sports shows, but Friday Night Lights, for some reason, I think it's the performances. I think it's the mix of like the documentary type filming style. I think it's the energy that pops off the screen. It doesn't hurt. Like this is probably one of the best looking young casts, like one of the best looking casts probably. Because especially like they found white people that are very like they look very traditional and folks that you would see like in the neighborhood, like in Texas or
very believable,
middle America. Exactly. And it's like, oh, they're like, no one's too pretty. Like even Mika Kelly, who is goddamn gorgeous, she looks like, that cute girl in high school that didn't know how bad she was.
Yes. And she was just the one. She was the one.
Exactly. Everyone knew it, but she didn't quite know it, or like, you didn't want her to know, because then that's when it's like a problem. That's when like she could make a turn and become like, Regina George or some shit.
It's just like this chick has no idea how bad she is because she's from Dillon, Texas. But when she goes to college, you know what I'm saying? And the world opens up to her, she's gonna be like, oh, I'm a 12. Like, what was I do? I thought I was living the life because I was dating the local quarterback when I could, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah, man.
Man, I love how the pilot starts off because it immediately sets up the world. It sets up, like, how important football is to, Dillon. It sets up the expectations for Coach Taylor, Eric Taylor, by Kyle Chandler, which I'm sure we'll be singing his praises throughout the next dozen or so episodes. Like,
yeah, he absolutely, killed this role as Coach Taylor. The cadence, the body language, it just everything says coach about this guy. You know what I mean? He did his homework, man. The facial expressions, everything says football coach. He nailed it.
And he's so believable. He's so believable. Like, it's like someone who like inspires young people who will kill themselves to like, make him proud to do the best work, and he, we see it throughout the series, like he is dedicated to his players. He's dedicated to these young men who sometimes don't have another, father figure in their lives. And so to him, that's a huge responsibility that he takes very, very seriously. We'll see how he does that with Smash and Searson and eventually, I believe, Riggins,
Riggins
has the whole jail thing and situation stuff. But what was it like for you rewatching the pilot and like, preparation for this episode?
Man, it gets me every single time. Like you said, I kind of took the same notes on the opening monologue, my montage. It was so good. And like every time I watch the pilot, I'm like, man, I forgot how great this show was. And you're right, the way they set it up with the sports radio voiceover, the music, the shaky handheld shots, it's showing like people going to work, and it's just it makes me think about my high school days, even though I didn't really have any like glory days as far as like being an athlete or anything like that. But still, I did play high school sports, and it does make you think about like that big game y'all had on Friday, and like you and the team being excited, and it just just about just your childhood, man. But it brings out real emotions, and from a show standpoint, you're like, man, I can't wait to get back into this. And I'm always like, oh, I can't wait to see what I forgot. You know what I'm saying?
100%. And I love how, like, they talk about the news crew is following Taylor at first game of the season, and all the pressure that comes with that. And they're interviewing the different players. So you learn about, the fact that Smash and Riggins hate each other. And like, they're like, oh, we hear like, rumors of racism on the team. And Smash is like, I don't bother with that. Well, no, Smash didn't say there isn't racism. He's just like, I don't let that get to me or bother me. And then that's the Riggins. He's like, oh, that's not racism, man. I just don't like the guy.
I don't care if he was Czech or from Sweden. I just don't like the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, Riggs, we smell a little bit of, Tim, we smell a little bit of alcohol in your breath. You been drinking? He's like, no, man, just I'm just tired. Like,
just tired, yeah. Yeah, I love how they introduced all the like the major characters too, man. Even though it was a little cliche, but I thought it was well done. How it just shows you like, hey, you got Saracen. He's kind of a caretaker for his grandmother.
Yeah, I had a question about that. Like, so because it's been a while since I watched it. So is Grandma grandma, is she all there? And just like
Uh,
goofy? Because I know she's like quirky, but is she all there mentally?
it gets there eventually because eventually she like wanders off one night. I think there when you I have to also think back to like when before I saw the show. So I think initially she was supposed to be kind of funny and quirky, but knowing what we know now, I think they were setting up the fact that she was in the beginning stages of dementia or Alzheimer's. If that makes sense. It's like it's funny you said that because the pilot's on right now, and when he leaves the house, he tells her about the sandwiches, and then she goes,
Two tuna sandwiches.
2 sandwiches, and then it's like she pauses and she says something like, "I think you're great," or something like that. And I was thinking, like, is that them foreshadowing there's something wrong with her, or are they showing that she's kind of goofy and kind of quirky? You know?
Yeah. And I think that that's what's so realistic about the show is that it could be a little bit of everything, right? It could also be
Yeah.
she's a simple woman. It could be a bunch of stuff like and that's what I love about this movie because the show because it shows humans. Humans going through a lot of shit. Like honestly, when I was watching this pilot, even though Street, obviously we'll talk about him in a second. He goes through a huge transformation in his life that's going to have huge implications for the team, for himself. But this is probably the lightest in regards to bad shit that happens to people in the cast. Unfortunately, everyone goes through a similar, like maybe not physical change like Jason Street does, but people go through some shit in this series.
Right.
And it reminded me of that as I'm watching this. You see Searson Landry, played by Jesse Plemons, who's been just killing it, the past 5 years or so, like just in regards to film, and their chemistry. And I'm still unclear though how old they're supposed to be.
Well, Sarah, go ahead.
No, I'm just curious because Landry is driving Searson to practice, right? Searson is a year older than him because he graduates a year before Landry.
Shit, he's
in a future season.
Yeah, because Saracen is a sophomore in season 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are Texas driving, is that different?
I was going to say certain states you can drive. Oh, also too, we got to remember this too, man. Landry's dad is a cop.
Ooh. Okay, so you think
Yeah, and I will say he's probably 14, and maybe in the state of Texas where you can drive to school and home when you're 14 or something like that. Because if you live like way out in the middle of nowhere, it's just like, hey man, these people's parents can't drive them to school. Like if they're 14, this is them fucking drive to school. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, for what I just looked up, you're supposed to be 18, even to legally drive back to school and back. But it's like you said, it's Texas, and Landry's dad's in law enforcement, so I'm sure that there's some kind of especially because he's driving he's driving Searson to and from practice. Yeah, I'm sure that maybe it was a line of dialogue that got cut from when he's like, Landry, you have insomnia. This ain't that big of a deal. I'm helping you out to deal with your sleeping issues or whatever.
Yeah,
because they get a lot of leeway. I mean, you got Riggins is a known alcoholic. Like it's very public. Like he's a fucking mess. These football players basically run the town.
Yeah, and I guess and I've heard the stories about how in Texas and in these different maybe somewhere places in Michigan where the high school football team, they're basically like the pros and they can go to bars and all this kind of stuff. We've heard the stories, the legends of the legendary Texas football high school player that can outdrink the fucking town mayor and shit like that. I don't know.
The town mayor.
I don't. You know those football legend stories. They let them drink. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because like when you watch this pilot episode, you're like, oh, that's why so and so didn't go pro. You know what I mean? Like you watch certain things where it's wild because when you think about this team, and folks, this isn't quite spoiler alerts because I'm sure if you're watching this, listening or watching this podcast, you have seen Friday Night Lights, the show.
The show's 20 years old. Get it?
Only one of them goes pro on this team.
Yeah, I mean that's real,
and that's like through like the kind of like last chance you path that Coach Taylor helps the character through. You know what I mean? That's wild because Jason Street's supposed to be the dude. He's like, he's got Notre Dame looking at him to lock him down. Apparently, his stats are like history making in Texas, right?
Yeah,
he's number one in the nation. They said, right?
He's him. Yep.
And so and then they imply that Taylor got promoted after 6 years of coaching. He got promoted to take over Dillon High School, the football team, because of his relationship with Jason Street. And he has been like coached them in Pee Wee and like stuff like that. And so it's just interesting how everything kind of like they like leave these little breadcrumbs that eventually like pay off later on in the seasons stuff.
Yeah, I think that that just added so much more to the story. You know what I mean? Because like for some reason, I always forget that he was never a head coach because he does it so well. And every time I watch the pilot, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He was just the quarterback coach for 6 years, and now they're just giving him the head coaching job, all because he coached this kid during his Pee Wee League years. So like when you really look at it from that lens, you go, oh, okay. Even though we're supposed to love this guy, you understand why the town is just like, yo, what the fuck is up with this guy? Like why? You know what I mean? Like almost like why is Bronny on the Lakers? Like what are we doing? Mac Brown should have taken over. I don't get it.
Well, it's because we haven't learned much about the boosters yet, and I didn't know anything about this stuff growing up. Or, even in crew, like we had like investors or whatever in the team, but I didn't quite understand how that.
Damn, that's like crew on a different level. You don't have boosters, you have investors.
Yeah, but Buddy Garrity, which this is a fantastic role. The first season, I hated this character, but
really.
Yeah, because he's fucking despicable because of the. We'll get into.
But you know what? You're right. I hated him. You're right. You're right. I've seen
it's like Jamie Lannister, where you're like, this guy's an asshole.
Isn't he physically perfect for the role?
Yes.
Buddy Garrity, he looks like a heart attack. You know what I'm saying?
He looks like a heart attack dude that like runs a local car dealership that somehow has a really hot daughter.
Yeah,
is just
cheats on his wife. Nothing but he is the stereotypical Texas football car salesman guy. You know what I mean? Guy.
Yep.
Perfectly casted. The way he talks and everything is perfect.
100%.
I love it.
No, man, that's why we do this. That's why because we love this show, and this pilot episode takes place Monday through Friday, right? So we watch the team getting prepared for the game and all the different dynamics and things that go into it. You see Street and some of the players going to like meet with the junior kid, the kid players and stuff, and you see how much football really matters. And for me, what I love about the show and why I think it's so timely that we're talking about this now, given like the political climate, the world, like the country, and the divisiveness of what's happening, is that this is a beautiful. It's football, right? Which I've never like had a personal connection to, but you see how much football is a unifier in a lot of ways to this community. You see Coach Taylor talking to everybody in the community, and people they want them to succeed. They're going about it like in some passive aggressive ways. Sometimes they're a little bit too much, especially if you're talking to teenagers and shit. But everyone really cares, and everyone wants the community to do well. Everyone wants just to be a part of something special, right? That's all this is like, we want to be a part of a community that wins. We want to be a part of a community that is the best of the best. And, in order to accomplish that, you do need to bring in people from different backgrounds and different stripes. Now, right now, Smash is the only like real brother that has a large speaking role, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which, from a Black perspective, that's par for the course, unfortunately. Like, I'm resigned to the fact that like we're gonna go back to kind of like the shows and movies and stuff like that that are really focused on white guys. That's just the pendulum's gonna swing back that way. Less about focus on like making sure representation is there for ethnicity of various ethnic groups. But for me, this makes sense. In Dillon at this time in 2006, it's gonna be primarily white people, and then the brothers are the ones that fucking running the field goals and killing all that shit. You know what I mean? It's but I also like, full disclosure, I don't know how the positions work in football. I learned that from this show.
Because you said they're running all the field goals.
You're like, what?
All the touchdowns and shit. Yeah, man. And I can identify with Smash's character, not from an athletic standpoint, because I was never the black star athletically, but being the black kid on the white team. You know what I mean?
100%. That was me on crew.
Yeah,
of course it was.
Being the black kid on the white team. But yeah, not the star, but yeah, definitely can understand that.
Did you ever get any snide remarks about that? Like, because typically when you're the only on a team, right? people expect you to be like the motherfucker, right? Like the one that like, is supposed to best us all because you're the pioneer for your race, the representation for your race on this team. So did you ever get any like?
Oh yeah, but until they saw me play, and it was just like, really, dude, you're that tall and you can't do this. So like, to be honest, and not to bring anything down, I always felt like a failure from that standpoint because I was just like, man, I'm not as athletic as all these other black dudes. You know what I mean? Because I'm actually talking about that on stage right now. I had these about being a delusional basketball player. I just didn't have it. You know what I mean? I just didn't, and I wanted that so bad. But yeah, I do know what that's like to be, to have that pressure on you, but not being able to, follow through and deliver. That was a huge, big insecurity in my life. It's like being the black dude that wasn't athletically gifted, and at times like not liking the fact that my strengths were more academic than athletic.
For sure, I completely understand that. Like athleticism was always something that I struggled with, not just because like I just hate hard labor and physical work, but I had what we thought was severe asthma, but actually might be like more of like a genetic thing that like really like made breathing difficult for me, especially in like laborious situations. And then on top of that, my mom was very protective. She didn't want me to like exert too much. Like I wasn't allowed to do like a big sport until high school, and that wasn't
really?
because she was like, "You can do it." It was like, "Hey, I just signed up to row crew." Like because before that, I did like wrestling because I wasn't good at basketball either. I was so bad when I first saw the episode of The Office where Stanley played basketball. And then, Michael Scott thinks he's going to be great and he's terrible. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me.
So I wasn't that bad.
I was pretty bad, man. Like,
Okay.
dribbling was, but I could randomly do like 3 points.
Oh, really?
Like if I was at the right angle, I could randomly like figure that out. But, most of the time, like motherfuckers are taller than me and bigger than me. So they would just they would immediately throw me off. So I couldn't like concentrate and focus.
Yeah.
And so it was always tough for me, like when it came to athletics, like in sports,
Really?
stuff like that. Yeah. I was always very like uncomfortable about it. So I just did my own thing. I did, that's when I got into theater and comedy or writing because I'm like, that's what I'm good at. Like I don't always, just because I'm black doesn't mean I have to be good at sports.
Yeah. I played a lot of sports. Like I was pretty good at baseball. Like I'm athletic. Like I can catch, throw. I can do all that stuff. I just don't do it fast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would say I was not gifted athletically. Anything that I learned to do, it took me a long time. Like I just had friends who were just athletically gifted as far as like jumping ability and agility and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I had to like work on. Where like some guys could just do that stuff. I would be a dude who had to like do the plyometrics and do box jumps and do all this stuff. And, like I would get results, but then it was weird, man, because like I would get results and go, I got it. And then like I would start dunking easy and stuff like that. And then I would quit doing the work because I thought I had it. Because like, I just didn't understand like, yo, you have to keep working at this. And because in my mind, I'm like, yo, all my friends, they don't eat right. They don't do anything. They can just dunk. They can just do this and they can do this. It's like, yo, you don't have that gift, and I did not understand that when I was like 16 years old, man. And yeah, so.
And I think that's what makes Jason Street's story, especially in the pilot, that's what makes it so tragic, right? It's like, he is the dude.
He's the guy. He's the guy. Yeah.
And he gets set hard as fuck and paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah,
I mean, the cross cutting between him being like loaded up and taken to the hospital, they start doing emergency surgery, to Searson trying to like, because he's a backup quarterback, like, and at this point, at the beginning he's talking to Landry, and they're like, I'm never gonna get any play this season. It's all the Street senior year. I'm getting no shine. There's no way.
Yeah,
Thrown in, and he has a few fumbles, he has a few mistakes, but quickly like focuses. And I mean, I just love the cross cutting, and it was really powerful how they did it.
Yeah, I took notes on that too because it was such a. You know what, man? I will say this too. Now I just realized this. Now that I'm a parent, I look at it differently too because the first time I watched this, I was just a guy in my early 30s. You know what I mean? So I just identified with like, oh, I could kind of see myself in these characters. But now being a parent, I'm thinking about Jason Street's parents and how, you know what I mean? And yeah,
just earlier that week they were talking to Notre Dame, right? Or was that even at the game?
At the game, they were like, yeah, let's get it done.
An hour early.
Yeah.
Early ago.
That's it. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I think about that, man. Because the first time I watched it, I'm like, man, that's crazy. And maybe I did analyze it, but just watching it now, I'm like, man, think about that. This guy's son, senior in high school, one of the best quarterbacks in America. He's on the #1 football team in Texas. They got his pee-wee coach. Everything is good to go. You know what I'm saying? They've done it. He hasn't gotten hurt. He's going to Notre Dame. He's likely going to go pro. He's got it all. He's got the super hot girlfriend. His life is about to be set up.
And he's seemingly a nice guy.
He's a good
street has some questionable things, but for overall, like from what we're presenting in the pilot, he's a very nice guy.
Yeah, he's a good kid. Not that as an adult you want to see a kid not make it, but he's a kid you want to see do well. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of fuck ups who get through because they're just talented. But like, here's a good kid and he's talented. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. And that was just devastating, man. Devastating. You know,
and that's why it's important, to, I get it. A lot of people put emphasis on their kids doing well in basketball or swimming or even art, being a musician, things like that. But you have to also focus on the education component and make sure that your kids set up for success academically, just in case some shit happens where they can't lean on that other talent. You know what I mean? I think that's always important to emphasize with athletes, especially in this situation, because, if he wasn't also intelligent, he might have had a hard time. I think that's one of the most heartbreaking things about the movie with the Boobie Miles character played by Derek Luke, right? Is that he is so good and he's getting all these offers from colleges and stuff. But I don't know if you remember, he couldn't even read the letters.
Oh, yeah.
He had to have another player read him the letters because he's illiterate, right? And so when he gets injured, the career-ending injury, he breaks down in the car with his uncle, I believe, and is like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
That's so sad.
The teachers were passing me because I'm so good at football. They were like, we want you to play, so we don't give a fuck. But yeah, man, that's what's so tough about watching these things, especially because you remember, you forget, you said, that these are kids still. These aren't adults. This isn't fucking Any Given Sunday. You know what I mean? This is a different ball game.
Yeah, exactly. It's you mentioned Last Chance U earlier. Have you watched it before?
I watched all the seasons.
It is. I don't want to veer too far off the show, but you brought that up, and it's just you bring up the Boobie Miles situation, and I see so many of those guys like that where you can tell they can barely read. If you've seen the show, you've seen and heard the assignments in the math and the schoolwork that they're doing at these schools. I mean, let's be real, man. This is like freshman level education.
Yeah, barely. You're in high school. It's the reading levels are not there. That's why especially the latter seasons. I would say you're like, oh no.
Yeah, so this dude can't get a book report done over the cricket in Times Square so he can play in his game. It's like, come on, man. I read that in 5th grade. But
it's you're literally in Last Chance U, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to do this assignment. I'm gonna play some PS5. It's like you literally have one more chance.
That's it. I know.
With the show.
It's just the camera crews aren't here because you're great, man. It's because this is your last chance.
Yeah,
it's sad, man. It's so sad. It's so sad. And what's wild too is as a young guy who was obsessed with athletics and going pro, and I mean, they don't show you that part of athletics. You know what I'm saying? They don't show you that shit because I'm not going to say that's where most of those guys, but so many people just, they end up chasing it for years and it amounts to nothing. And you can say the same thing with comedy, to be fair.
Yeah. But to your point though, you need to be able to carry yourself in a somewhat articulate light, right? You cannot be that guy if you can't handle a press conference, if you can't speak to people, you know what I mean? If you're not able to articulate your thoughts, because if you just mumble your way through an interview or you don't have anything remotely, intelligible to say, the reporters are going to go away from you and go to the other guy. You know what I mean? You have to have a personality that pops. You have to be able to have, clear answers. You have to, have some swag. And that all comes from experience, but also education. That comes from the right people around you who can coach you and prepare you, right? And I think that that's one of the things I'm excited to talk about in the latter season, especially when we get to East Dillon and stuff, because, we could talk about those dynamics and also specifically how Black parents kind of work with their kids to try to help them get to the place where Jason Street is, right?
Right.
Where you have these parents, who are seem working class folks. Everyone's like middle class in this community. I would say Jason Searson is kind of on the lower end of that. But for the most part, everyone's like straight middle class. Like even the Taylors, like Tammy Taylor, she's highly educated and she's all about academics. That's like her career. Eric Taylor, he's a good dude who just loves coaching. That's like his calling.
Right.
He just loves it. And they live this modest life. They're looking for a house, to finally establish roots. Even though there's hesitation on Eric's end, right? Like it's like he's kind of like, this might all be gone in a day. Like,
it's just like he's so scared that that this could go away at any moment. Like he knows what he's up against. You know what I mean? And Tammy, even though she knows, she seemed like she kind of like doesn't know like how serious it is.
Yeah, I mean, if they lose at least like even 2 games in a row, he's done. Like that's how quickly he can get fired. I mean, they don't, that like he needs to win these games. It's not like Denzel and Remember the Titans, right? When the guy he's like, "Oh no, brother, if you lose, they're gonna fight." It's like not that like direct, but it's implied.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were pretty nasty in a few scenes. Like the one scene that really, I don't know if it's the pilot, so I don't know. But when the guy says something to his daughter about losing football games.
Oh yeah, that's a later episode.
Okay.
For this one, it's mostly like they're networking with the neighborhood, and like that's
true.
How the adults in the community also taught these teenagers, these players, and then the passive aggressiveness towards Eric and Tammy, who we haven't even talked about. Tammy, she doesn't have much to do in the pilot episode besides encouraging Eric to just stay focused, and she's like hoping that he'll find a right house for them to live in. That while she's being pressured to join that book club.
Yeah,
but Connie Britton.
Oh yes,
Connie Britton. There's very few white starlets that age very well in Hollywood, and she is still gorgeous. I don't know. It's crazy.
That's elite milk right there, baby.
Yeah. But Tammy and Eric Taylor are up there with like one of the best TV couples I would say.
Yeah.
Especially in like the past 20 years.
Yeah, I could definitely see her at my grocery store right up the street. You know what I mean? And same with Eric Taylor. Like Coach Taylor, he seemed like he would run into, I don't know if y'all got Giant up there. He would run into the grocery store to grab like a case of Gatorades for the team, and you would see him with the khakis and the visor. Like he's so believable. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, while still trying to be diplomatic with, hey, how you doing? Hey. Like, but he's trying to get out of there and shit. Yeah. I love that guy, man. He's so good.
The Taylors are a great couple, and same with like they're up there with like Randall and Beth Pearson for me. Like from This Is Us. Like I don't know if you watched This Is Us.
I never watched that one.
Oh, man,
I didn't want to cry.
NBC is good at this tearjerkers, like Friday Night Lights and This Is Us. Like This Is Us is the first show that like made me like bawl.
Really?
Yeah, like there's a few episodes of Friday Night Lights that got me teary eyed, but like This Is Us is the first show that like had episodes where I'm like breaking down in tears. And to be fair, we started watching during the pandemic, and so there's like a lot of things that came up.
Oh yeah,
or things like, or like I found out about my father during this time, so there's a lot of like sensitive things that got to me. But yeah, I just love couples that I can believe like are together, like are a family. The daughter, that's perfect casting, dude.
I know.
Be a combination between Kyle Chandler and Connie Britton, like that's perfect casting with Amy. Was it Tarragon or something like that?
Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic.
Teagarden.
Yeah, fantastic casting.
Yeah,
and she has a lot more to do in the later seasons.
Yeah, awful person, hater. You're not a fan.
You're not a fan of later seasons?
Nah, we can get into that later. I don't like how she did my boy, so we'll get
Searson. Yeah,
we'll get into that. We will get in.
He's such a good dude, the kid. Like, and I think that's where you get lucky in a town like this. Like, you get lucky to be able to. Because let's be honest, like if these are all asshole kids and terrible people, like who would want to coach this?
No, yeah, exactly. Nobody.
Exactly. Yeah. Tim Riggins is out of his goddamn mind, but he's so good, and he's like, I just want to hurt people. I'm like, I mean, we should unpack that with counseling, but You know, if you're on the
Yeah.
field and you get the work done, that's what
Yeah,
matters.
I know, and it's something about him. It's something about him where you just want to give him another chance.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I think the fact that we know about his life and why he's doing what he's doing, it makes you want to pull for him. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, come on, man. You know, like, because you like his brother's not the best. He doesn't have the best environment. It's like because we know somebody like that. You know what I mean? We know somebody like that.
Yeah, yeah. Like he was kind of like being raised by themselves or like being raised by another kid. And
Yeah, raised by wolves. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, and you just know, like, hey, this isn't gonna turn out well for this kid. He's talented. He's already drinking. He got girls staying the night, and he's 16. It's like this isn't gonna, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work out well. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, we didn't even talk about his girlfriend, Taylor. Yeah, she's out of her goddamn mind. She's flirting with Smash and stuff to like rile up that rivalry.
Yeah,
And she's just, I knew girls like this in Michigan too, who were
right.
always teasing other dudes and stuff like that to get their boyfriend upset, and then that would cause a whole thing. It's insane how she goes about her life.
Yeah, and it's funny too how they do it, because if you think about her and Tara, I mean Tara and
Lila. You're talking about
oh,
Street's girlfriend?
no, I'm talking about the girl that Riggins is messing with, Tara.
Oh yes, yeah,
So it's just funny to me because like they're lower middle class to poor, her and Riggins,
yeah.
and it's funny how like they already kind of have that kind of like socioeconomic drama where like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out here and mess with this guy to piss you off, and it's like they're already doing that poor people shit where like they're just antagonize each other. They're not that people with money don't do it, but it's definitely like in that wheelhouse of like just the relationship drama. Her sister's a stripper. She's pretty, but school ain't her thing, and she doesn't like Lila because she's got money and she's pretty. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I just think it's cool, but man, it did make me mad the first time I saw Tara doing that. It's just like, yo, that's so fucked up. That like even at an early age, this girl knows to like, if I can draw a wedge in between these guys, it's gonna cause a rift. They don't already like each other. I'm mad at him. It's just like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like low class drama. But I think it's great in this bit. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but I love it.
No, it's that's the drama. That's the
Yeah.
tension, right? That's the friction between these
Yes.
characters and things like that. And she doesn't help the situation, but it's also like I think going back to what I mentioned earlier about who from this team actually goes pro, and I think about it, I'm like, Riggins at the very beginning of this, not at the beginning of this episode, but during this episode, kind of tells us he's not trying to go pro. He's like, I love Texas. That's where Texas forever comes. It comes full circle in the last episode, but he's like, man, I just want to own property here and be with my friends and family and just enjoy Texas. Like, I love this place. I would never want to leave.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think he meant that or just afraid of success and failing? Because I think that's what it was. Tim just didn't believe in himself. And I think Tim, he didn't want to set those expectations for himself and then not meet those, because he goes to college later on. He's like, fuck that. He's a pussy, man. That's what it is. He doesn't want to try and fail.
That's an interesting question, man. I think
he's afraid.
I can definitely see that, but I think what's interesting about the way that Taylor Kitsch is playing Tim Riggins is it could go either way.
Very true.
I think that there's definitely maybe something below the surface that's like has that insecurity, and it's just that's where the drinking comes into play and the lack of confidence outside of anything involving football. But at the same time, it could be like just as simple as I love this place. I don't want to leave, because back in Michigan, there's so many dudes that I know that are still back in Michigan that are happy. That are like, I never want to leave this place. Like, why would I want to leave this place? I love it here. This is my home.
Are they okay? Can I ask you this? Can I ask you this about those guys? Are they doing well?
Well, that's okay. So I think it depends on how you define well, right? If it's like, hey, I have a family, we're doing pretty good, everyone's got good health, we're doing all right, then yes. If it's like, hey, like I wish I could be doing more, or I want to be doing more and stuff like that, there's a few of those, but not as much as the folks that are in the former who are like, I'm good.
They're not, so they're not scraping by. They're like, nice houses.
Well, some of them are. Like the sad part about going back to Michigan, particularly Ann Arbor, is that I hear from so many people I grew up with in Ann Arbor who talk about how they can't afford to live in Ann Arbor.
Mm.
That's wild because you know what I mean. That's like a wild thing to me to be like I can't. I guess it's the same thing that people talk about when they're here in New York and like they talk about the rents and stuff like that. They're like, how can I not afford to live where I've lived all my life? You know what I mean? And that's something that I'm fortunate, I guess, where I don't think about that all the time, but that is something that I hear when I go back to Michigan.
But I also, it's kind of a lazy mentality. It's just like, just because you're here, you think you should just be able to afford it because you could when you were a kid. It's just like, you got to think like,
Well, I think it's a generational thing, Chris. I think it's more like I'm doing worse off than my parents because if my parents were able to live here, I can't. And I got a full-time job and I followed the path that I'm supposed to, like getting a college education, all those stuff.
Oh, okay.
I think that's kind of how we ended up where we're at now, or in society, where people are like, wait, what the fuck? I followed the rule book, especially in the Midwest, because we're all about following rules and shit.
That's true. I guess I see more of the latter where it's just like people who really aren't doing well complaining about stuff like that. It's just like, yo, it's like you work at Walmart. Like, not that I'm not saying that there aren't any positions at Walmart that don't pay well, but it's just like you're a cashier. Like, what do you? I don't know. It's just like a lot of the people that I know that complain, they really haven't applied themselves, and it's just more of like, oh, back in the day, you used to be able to do blah blah blah. It's just like, well, you didn't really do anything to prepare yourself for times changing, and it's just like, yeah, man, it's not 1990 anymore. Sorry, it's just like things have changed. It's just like, yeah, you haven't applied yourself at all.
Okay. Well, I think that leads to an interesting circle back to the Riggin storyline that will expand, obviously, throughout the series.
Right.
Things like that. He's one of the few characters that sticks around the whole series, him and his brother. They have like huge story arcs. But
yeah, they do, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, that's curious because now I'm thinking, okay, is the reason why Riggins doesn't bleed beyond, the scope of, Dillon, Texas, because he's never actually seen the execution of someone on the team going pro, like going to college, going pro, right? They talk about Mac Brown, but like that's like a person who's like, become a head coach and, University of Texas and stuff. Like we don't learn much about his relationship with Dillon, Texas, right? And so I'm wondering, because Riggins' brother, he's all like, oh, you got to, like, there's a bunch of players that are already up and at him and like practicing and stuff. Mind you, the brother's shirtless. He's all hungover and shit too. And I'm thinking like, someone it reminds me of when I was a kid, right? Where if you don't know, like, I need to do my own research and I need to like figure out like my own path to doing this. When I was growing up as a kid, my nana like would show me Eddie Murphy, Best of SNL, like she would watch all that with me, Keenan and Kel and stuff like that, and be like, Brandon, you could do this. We could get you on SNL. Like she had this fantastical view of how careers in Hollywood would happen, right? But it's not grounded in reality. And so if I was a kid fully believing that, I could have had my dreams crushed very, very early on in life, right? When you actually find out what the process is to getting on these things. And so I wonder if Tim Riggins always just saw through his brother's bullshit, like what his brother was telling him. Because he's like, so many dudes that do exactly what you did ended up right where we're at.
Right. Yeah.
Because didn't the brother play football too?
He played too, yeah.
So it's like, what are we talking? Like, what I mean? I feel like that's the conversation that a lot of young people are having now. It's like, well, why would I go to college if I see older sibling or parents who did the same thing and they're struggling? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
Right. They see through all your cliche sayings and your paper thin motivational saying. They see through that. His brother did try to motivate him, but it's like, what was his brother really doing to better himself? Now, I will say later on, I think things did get better for them when like they opened up the shop. You know what I'm saying? That's when things got a little bit better. But then nefarious things happened, and that's when things go. I think they had that work ethic in them. They just really didn't know how to follow through. I think Tim's dad leaving him, I think that made him feel weird about praise too. You know what I mean? Because like Tim was all in when he met up with his dad again, and his brother was like, "Yo, be careful." And I think he's really afraid of disappointment because Tim loves football like he loves his dad. And I feel like if football doesn't do for him what he wanted to, like he wanted his dad, he can't deal with that rejection again. So like, why act like I really give a fuck about football? Because I know, and he's probably more of a pragmatist. Like, yo, like you said, like, yo, why try all this stuff? I'm not going to make it pro anyway. I'll just stay here. My boy is going to go pro. I'll live on his land. And then we will be successful.
That's what's so beautiful about this fucking show, man, is that we're gonna learn so much more about these characters and what motivates them to play football or be
Yeah.
in this, because we learn about Sears and he's like, man, I'm just doing this to try to get to a good college and then I'm out of here. Like,
Yeah, dude.
he's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go pro. I just want to get the fuck out of Dillon, Texas.
And I didn't even know he was an artist. I'm like, he's an artist? That's
Yeah, that pops up later in the show and stuff like that. And
yeah.
you obviously Smash is the one that's like, I need to go pro so I can take care of me and mine. It's like, you know what I mean? He's the one that
Right. He needs
I gotta lift up my family.
right. He needs it.
Street's just like, I'm just really fucking good, so let's just ride this out, and I can take care of my boy Tim, I'm gonna give 1% of my salary to take care of
Right.
our farm and stuff like that in Texas, like, because they're best friends. Riggins and Street are best friends. They've known each other since they were kids.
Right. And it's such a beautiful friendship of like you got the one privileged kid he has the structure, the discipline, the father, and then you got Riggins who is, I can't say the polar opposite, but different circumstances. But probably he might even be more talented, but we don't know because he doesn't have, the structure around him. And then you got Smash, the black kid who needs to make it out the hood. And then we got Landry, who's just a friend, who's the average guy. He's not athletic, but he's fun. And like, if you look at it, I feel like Landry has everything that everybody's looking for. And the one thing that he's missing is that athletic prowess. And you know what I mean? And he's a character that I would identify with more because, just average looking, not really good at sports. Girls aren't really looking for him, but he has a stable, great home life. And like, that's what they all need in life. And he's the richest kid on the show.
Yeah, like in regards to his heart and stuff like that, I would definitely.
Yeah.
Well, no, I would say that's Taylor. That's Coach Taylor, man, because that's what keeps him. That's why he's such an anchor for the show and for everyone on the show, because he really. I mean, maybe even the MVP is Tammy at the end of the day, because she's the one that's got to shoulder Eric's burdens and stuff. Like he's the one.
No,
she's the one that Eric, can go to be like, yo, this shit is great. Like,
right.
Because everyone goes to Eric, but then he's the one, he has a partner that's down for everything, who he can like offload stuff to. So,
Yeah.
like I said, Taylor's are a powerhouse couple, man. Like,
You're right. And I'll say this, man, like if younger me would have not agreed with you as a man, like, yo, she knew what she was getting into, but like, I really think that shows a lot of maturity in a man when you can actually really start making that recognition, man. Like me being in the military, I want to say a few years in, they started recognizing spouses at like retirements and stuff like that. And it was crazy now that I look back, how many of the guys would get mad at that. Like, she didn't sign up, I did. And then over time, like, it's just like you start to get it. You go, yo, of course, yo, all these women, and don't forget the husbands of women who enlisted or commissioned. Like, yo, your significant other plays a huge role. Like, it was just Veterans Day yesterday. And I did 20 years, and I had to tell my wife, like, yo, thank you so much. She helped me through alcoholism and all types of shit. And the fact that our marriage made it through the military is crazy, because most of them don't. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you need the Tammys. You know what I'm saying? You need those fucking women. I'm pretty sure, like, dude, like, Coach Tomlin right now is killing it in Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sure all these guys in the NFL, they got a wife who know the playbook just as much as them. They know what wide receivers are sucking right now. That's because their husbands come home and they fucking yelling and screaming, and they're there for them. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, as a leader, you can't do all that shit in front of the guys that you're coaching, or even to some of your coaches, you can't talk a certain way. So you have to be able to go home and get that shit off your chest. And who is it going to be? This woman or man?
Yeah, man, because you see the other side of that and how it can take a physical toll on you. I don't know if you watched Ted Lasso, but to me, I think that's one of the reasons why Ted, spoiler everybody, but why Ted at the end of season 3 goes back home, because he doesn't have a partner to be able to offload. So he's like having success as a coach, and he's inspiring these young men on the football team, but he's having panic attacks and shit. He's having crazy anxiety and stuff, and he has no one to really connect with. He gets a therapist eventually, but it's a different thing to have a partner at home that gets what you're going through, that supports you, that will tell you when you're wrong, or will tell you when you need to consider something else. Because without that, Eric Taylor is not the coach that he is, because he has someone who understands empathy, who can really push him to be the leader that he needs to be for these kids, especially when Street, gets an injury, and he's the one that's like, he keeps a strong face on. They do the prayer, with the other team and stuff like that. They go to the hospital, and he's the one that's like, He's not breaking down. He's not throwing a tantrum and saying like season's fucking ruined. He's not like talking to seriously like we gotta start practicing tomorrow because blah blah blah. Like he's just there for his boys who are struggling to understand why this happened, how this happened, and how they're going to keep moving forward after winning this game. Because now the pressure's on. I mean, the pressure's always been on, but now winning, it's like you got to keep winning. Because what does that one brother say when he's talking to Taylor about the opposing team, like how they're built and like their strategy? He's like, there's nowhere to go. Like when you're at this position, with the number one team in Texas, and you're like, and you have all these things. You have the number one player in Texas. There's nowhere for you to go but down.
Yep.
You have to keep staying a winner.
Yeah, you do, man. And like, as with this episode, with Street getting hurt, it's tragic. It's absolutely terrible. We talked about it. We feel bad. But also on the flip side, I was kind of laughing to myself because at one point Street goes, "I'm so sorry, coach. Are you mad at me?" And of course he's like, absolutely, like, why would I be mad? But deep down inside, he's probably like, you kid, you fucked me. Like I put everything into this. And then you know what I mean? Even though like he can't say that, but deep down inside, he's like, why did this happen to me? I take over, this kid gets paralyzed. Like, are you kidding me? Even though he knows like how he feels is trivial to actually what happened to Jason Street. But I also look at it from coach's standpoint because he's a person too. Jason Street, tragic. Setting that aside, he's like, I have the worst luck ever. I have like, why is this happening to me? Yes, I understand Street is hurt, but man, this guy has to be thinking this. I can't have the worst. This is the worst luck. They're already breathing down my neck. They're gonna kill me if I don't win, and I got this backup that's never played. I'm fucked. And it's like he has to balance like still coaching, still being a dad, consoling these young men, consoling Jason Street and his parents. Staying on top of like, you know what I mean? And then they don't even really cover, well, they do briefly. Like, I can't even imagine the protocol they have to go through as a coach from like practice and hitting standpoint again, if this happens to a guy. Like the amount of scrutiny and people that are going to come in to watch your practices and tapes, probably interviewing coaches. Did he ever say anything weird? Did he coach this? You know what I mean? That's so insane. But like you were saying, he has to do that shit with a straight face.
100%, man. And he has that line at the end where he says, we're all vulnerable and we will at some point in our lives fall. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful things about watching the show, especially from a male perspective, is that I don't think men talk enough about failure and how to come back from that with your head held up high and admit that you made bad decisions or something didn't go according to plan and how you react to it. Because it's very easy to throw a tantrum and lose your shit. Like one of my favorite moments ever is Old School when Will Ferrell's like, we can't lose our composure. And he's slamming the chair and shit like that and losing his mind in the locker room. But that's obviously not how you're a leader. That's not how you inspire people to keep calm and, stay focused. But, between that and Clear Eyes, Full Hearts Can't Lose.
Damn.
It just shows this is the beginning of a lot of trials and tribulations for all these people, how much this has rocked their lives. And, we're going to see over the next few seasons how this one, game impacts everybody. It has a profound impact on Coach Taylor, on the players, on obviously Street's life, his girlfriend, Lila's life, Riggins, everybody. Like even Riggins,
everybody.
This is so crazy. It caused Riggins and Smash to kind of temporarily squash their beef.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Look, it's funny you mentioned Street's transformation. Yeah. Like everybody went through a transformation that night, and they might not have known it that night. But like, look at Saracen. He went from being an absolute nobody. He woke up that morning, not even think, I'm not playing. This is another, just another day. To now, like, hey, you're the guy. You're him. Just like that.
And we'll see how he deals with that in future episodes.
It's so good, man. So were you sold the first episode? Were you like, I'm in?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, just the way, like I said, the way it's shot, the energy, the music choices, the performance. I mean, the fact that Peter Berg just adapted this from a book, one book, The Friday Night Lights, A Talent, A Team, and a Dream by H.G. Bissinger, and like created this show. He had to do the work too. He had to get the buy-in from the community, like from Texas community. He had to really, this feels so authentic. And
it does.
From what I've read and seen in regards to other commentary, and even the actors, they have their own rewatch podcast, but we're different than that because we're Black guys. But like, they talk about how much it was embraced by the football community, by the Texan community and stuff like that. So I just love everything about this show.
Me too, man.
Some meh episodes that we'll get to, but
It's not perfect. It's not perfect. Like any other show. Like I love Sopranos, but it's not perfect. People make fun of it all the time. I want just a couple questions before we get out of here.
yeah.
The handheld shaky shots, to me, that it adds so much to the show. Could you just imagine like it just being a still shot? It would not play the same. It wouldn't.
I think from a technical standpoint, it makes sense too, because you have to substitute, stunt players, right? So doing the shaky cam and random zoom ins and zoom outs and stuff allows you to supplement the actors with other play. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to pull that off.
Yeah, and it adds such a more, like you said, a documentary style feel to it. It almost feels like you're there at times. You know what I'm saying? And damn, the other point too. I think we talked about this. No, a friend of mine. The football play I think is great. That was such a big thing for me with these type of shows, because a lot of you've seen TV like a network show. It's really bad. We all remember even basketball games on Fresh Prince, terrible. So that was something I was like, man, I just don't know if I can make it through these football scenes. But they do such a great job where like I don't mind them. Some of them I'm looking forward to. Yes, some are funny just because like you've seen like the actor throw. And then you see like the action. I mean, you see the stuntman throwing the football. You go, that is not the same actor. That's funny.
Yep.
But other than that, I feel like the action, the football play is really, really good. And it does not take anything away from the show. But I'm sure there's people out there who absolutely hate it. I'm sure. But I think they did a great job.
100%. And then folks, let us know, like, if you had some qualms with the way the football's portrayed on the show, and what Chris and I might be missing, because we're not professional football players in any way. We just told y'all an hour ago that we barely played. Well, I barely played sports. Chris,
I didn't play any football though. Yeah,
me neither. My mom was always afraid of me getting fucked up. I mean, that's still a fear like a lot of parents have with their kids playing football. It's like, with the CTE and all the stuff that we know about injuries that happen.
Right.
Those are hard physical injuries to come back from.
Yeah, man.
They have long-term consequences and stuff, constant surgeries and shit.
Yeah, dude. Real quick, I've heard of, especially in states like Texas and Florida, where like guys who are linemen, they're having their knee surgeries done like preemptively. Like they'll get their ACLs and stuff like cut and then sewn back together surgically. That way, it's already stronger. But this was probably 10 or 12 years ago, so I don't know if that practice is still a thing. But I'm like, yo, why are people going out getting these surgeries done? It's like you're 17, nothing has happened yet, but you're getting pre-surgery just to make it. Yeah, and like we were saying earlier, you're not going pro.
Yeah, I mean that's a hard thing though, right? Like it's at the very least you want to go to college to get a degree and then go pro if you can, right? But that's a lot. When you tell somebody that's a lot of fucking work to be a full-time athlete and a full-time student, that's a lot.
It is. And like I think being an athlete is great. I mean, we see these guys make a lot of money, but we also have to remember 70% of these guys end up broke. And 70% of them also don't play for that long. So like when you're young, it seems like such a glamorous lifestyle. And like the older I get, the more I realize it's really not. Because most of those guys, they end up just living a regular life. And yes, there are, handfuls of them that get to do really cool things and make a shit ton of money. But most of them, they don't. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty wild. Yeah. It's pretty wild. And it's a big sacrifice, man.
I mean, if it's something you're passionate about, if it's something that you love, there's always going to be sacrifice, no matter how much joy and it brings to you. It's and it's scary as fuck.
Yeah,
because if it doesn't work out, it's hard sometimes to tell the people that you're trying to take care of and be like, I follow my dreams. Now we gotta struggle for a while until I can figure some shit out.
That's how I feel right now, man. But yeah, this is fun, man. Yeah, please let us know who are your favorite characters, who don't you like, what did you love about the pilot, what didn't you like about the pilot?
Yeah, I want to introduce a segment called On the Bench recommendation, which is like the character that we think wasn't great or maybe did some questionable shit in this episode. So we're talking about the pilot episode. For me, it's Billy Riggins. I think, we obviously learn more about Billy in the show, but the fact that this dude is just as hungover as his little brother and being like, there's other people in the world that are doing the work and you're still on the couch all lazy and shit. You gotta get on that field, Tim. It's like, nigga, look at yourself. Like, I hate people that are hypocritical, that don't that are like just so lacking self-reflection and self-awareness. Like,
yeah, no
that's
discipline.
the pot calling the kettle black. Like, what do you want me to do the shit you can't do or you didn't do? Okay, buddy, sure.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great choice is Billy Riggins. I was gonna bench his brother, but you know what?
Tim, you were gonna say Tim?
Because Tim, if Jason Schroeder's your boy, this is his senior season. Y'all just starting practice, and you want to show up drunk the first day? Fuck you.
Fair enough.
You know what I'm saying? But you're right. He's a kid. I'm gonna give him a pass this time. Billy Riggins, benching Billy. That's a great choice.
Billy Riggins. You fucked up on this episode. Let's see if you can get off the bench next episode.
But I don't hate him though. That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, he does even worse shit later on in the show, though. That's the thing is, like, Billy's a fuck up. Billy,
He is.
he becomes self-aware that he's a huge fuck up eventually. It causes him dearly, but he realizes how much of a fuck up he is.
Yeah. I think I do have a soft spot for them, man. I don't know why. I do. I have
It's
a
the
soft spot
performances.
for the Riggins.
The actors are very, very good. Like, the brotherly dynamic. The actor that plays Billy Riggins, blanking on his name, but he does a really good job of. It's a great actors are able to take a character that you don't quite like or don't understand or just can't connect with and make them someone who you're rooting for by the end of the series.
Oh yeah,
or someone that you really care about. Like, I always praise the actor that played Jaime Lannister. I mentioned him a little bit earlier on this episode. Jaime Lannister is one of the most despicable, evil characters in the first season of Game of Thrones, but he becomes a fan favorite because you see the change in him and you see him starting to care about other people besides himself and his sister. It's a great performance. I attribute that to the writing and the performance, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's similar things that happen with other characters, like Billy Riggins, Garrity, and even Smash to an extent, because Smash is an asshole a lot.
He is
as well, and you see him go through a huge transformation in the later seasons too.
I hate that dude, man. Can I say this? I think he's a god awful actor.
Oh, the actor who played Smash?
Yes, I hate his acting on the show.
Gus Charles?
Not a fan, man. Am not a fan. I think he's terrible. Me and my boy TJ whenever we talk about the show, we can't talk about it without talking about how much we don't like his acting ability.
Okay. I wasn't really. I mean, he doesn't have much to do in this besides be an arrogant dude.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe your impression will change as you rewatch this.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Maybe
the same thing about Jesse T. Usher and a lot of the stuff he did, and then I started watching him on The Boys, and he's doing other work now that's shown that he's getting stronger as an actor. So maybe maybe on a rewatch, Chris, it'll change your mind.
And then later on, they add another actor who I absolutely despise, Journeys.
No, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna tarnish that child actor who's been blooming into a strong black woman's.
Don't.
We'll get into that.
We will.
We'll get.
Me and my wife will laugh about it, but
All right. But Chris, please tell the listeners how they can follow you and keep up with what you're doing.
Follow me on everything at Chris Allen Comedy. I have a special on YouTube called Gotta Be Honest. Check it out. And I have a podcast, Chris Allen Show, that is coming to an end soon.
No.
Well, I'm starting a new one.
Oh, okay.
I have a new co-host. His name is Dow. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's called The New OGs, and it's going to be officially starting January 2020. Actually, just secured a new studio space yesterday, and we are super excited, man. So be on the lookout. New OGs. Check out all episodes of the Chris Allen Show. Watch my special. Gotta Be Honest on YouTube.
All right. Folks, y'all can follow me at Frodo_Blackens on Instagram and Threads, FrodoBlackens.com. I got some show dates coming up, and my Drunk Black History Show is going to be hitting the road, so I'll be keeping y'all posted on 2025 dates for that. And then Medium Popcorn Podcast. It's a movie review podcast I do with the homie Justin Brown. That's available on all podcast applications and all that stuff. But leave us a 5-star review for this podcast. It helps get the visibility up. Push that subscribe button on YouTube. All that good stuff. Let us know what you thought about the show. And, we're just going to keep, banging these out and recapping Friday Night Lights.
Can't lose.
Full hearts. Clear.
I love the show so much.
It's great.